They say every wedding carries a story, but few begin with a moment so painful it echoes long after the music fades. On that warm June afternoon, Ethan stood beneath an arch of white roses, feeling the weight of every heartbeat as he waited for the woman he believed was meant for him. His palms were damp, his suit felt a little too tight, and he whispered small prayers under his breath, the kind you whisper when you're afraid to lose something you love. When Hannah appeared at the end of the aisle in her shimmering dress, the room seemed to still. Family, friends, neighbors, all watching with soft smiles. But deep in her eyes, hidden behind mascara and nervous laughter, something was unsettled. Something Ethan hadn't seen before. And the moment she reached him, everything he thought he understood about love began to shift in ways he never expected. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. From the outside, theirs looked like a perfect love story. He was the steady one, the man who woke early, cared for his small landscaping business with quiet pride, and spent evenings tinkering in his garage or watering his collection of potted herbs. She was the dreamer, full of energy that could warm a room or overwhelm it, depending on her mood. People said they balanced each other well, but balance doesn't always mean peace. Ethan adored her, but he didn't always understand her. Hannah loved him too, but she didn't always trust herself to stay. As the ceremony began, Ethan thought the tremble in her hands was just nerves. He told himself she was excited. But beneath that soft smile she wore was a fear she never named. And later, people would ask, what drove her to the moment that changed everything? Was it fear, guilt, confusion, or something deeper? To understand the truth, you must first know where they came from. Ethan grew up in a quiet home with a mother who spoke gently and a father who taught him to finish what he started. He believed in loyalty the way some people believe in religion. Hannah, however, grew up in the shadows of arguments behind closed doors, where plates broke and promises shattered like old glass. She taught herself early that love could vanish without warning. She carried wounds no doctor could diagnose and fears no one could see unless she trusted them completely, something she rarely did. When Ethan proposed under strands of fairy lights behind her grandmother's house, she said yes because for a moment she convinced herself she could be the woman he dreamed of. But dreams, when built on fear, can crumble long before the truth ever comes to light. On their wedding day, everything appeared normal, even beautiful. The church smelled of candles and lilies, soft music floated through the air, and relatives whispered about how lucky they both were. Ethan felt as though he were living inside a memory he had waited years to create. Hannah walked toward him with an expression few could read, excitement mixed with something tightly held inside. As the officiant welcomed everyone and the vows began, Ethan reached into his jacket and pulled out the piece of paper he had carefully folded earlier. He thought he would steady himself by reading his words, but when he turned it over, the back revealed a sharp message written in thick marker, "Help me." Gasps rippled through the room. Hannah's face froze as though struck. Ethan stood speechless, unable to understand what had happened, and in that moment the air changed from warm celebration to cold confusion. The crowd whispered. A few guests covered their mouths. Hannah, stunned and embarrassed, hit her bouquet lightly against Ethan's arm, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Why would you do that?" Ethan, equally confused, tried to laugh it off, thinking it might somehow smooth the moment over, but the look in her eyes told him nothing about this was simple. She believed he had humiliated her, though he didn't even know how the words got there. The officiant attempted to calm everyone, but the damage was done. Hannah's breathing grew unsteady. Her shoulders shook as if she were holding back a storm. After the vows ended, she walked out of the church before the doors even closed behind her. Guests shifted uncomfortably, unsure what to say. Ethan remained standing there, unable to move, replaying the moment in his mind, wondering if he had just lost the person he loved most. The reception was quiet, awkward, scattered. People picked at their plates. Laughter, where it existed, felt forced. Ethan searched for Hannah, but she avoided him, slipping out a side door before anyone could question her. They didn't take wedding photos. They didn't cut the cake. They didn't share a first dance. That night, Ethan sat alone in their new apartment, the silence pressing against him like a weight on his chest. He replayed the scene over and over, her shocked expression, the murmurs of the crowd, the way she fled. He wondered if his hands had somehow brushed ink without noticing. But no explanation made sense. Meanwhile, Hannah stayed with a friend, refusing to answer calls. She cried uncontrollably, but even she didn't fully understand why she reacted the way she did. Something inside her was unraveling, but she hid it beneath layers of silence and fear. In the weeks that followed, the couple hardly spoke. Ethan went to work as if nothing had happened, but inside he felt hollow. His employees noticed his quietness, the way he stared at the ground, the way he forced a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Hannah avoided everyone. She cancelled the honeymoon, cancelled brunches, ignored messages from friends who wanted answers. She told her sister, "I don't know how to explain myself without sounding broken," and that sentence haunted her for days. She wasn't angry at Ethan, she was angry at herself. But she didn't know how to say it without reopening old wounds. Ethan wanted to reach her, but every attempt felt like trying to hold smoke in his hands. The tension between them grew until it felt like two strangers living parallel lives, each waiting for the other to say something first. 6 months later, Hannah finally sent Ethan a message, "Meet me at the park." It was the same park where he proposed, where lights hung from branches like captured stars. When he arrived, she was sitting on a bench wrapped in a soft coat, staring at the pond. Her hands trembled, but this time she didn't hide it. She asked him to sit. He did. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she confessed everything, the fear she carried since childhood, the constant voice telling her she would fail at love, the belief that she wasn't enough for a man as steady as he was. She said the message on the paper wasn't written by him. She had written it herself weeks before, intending it as a joke during rehearsal, but she forgot the note existed. When she saw it during the ceremony, the shock overwhelmed her. She panicked, believing her secrets had been exposed. Ethan listened silently, feeling his chest tighten with a mix of hurt and compassion. He hadn't known she carried so much inside her. He hadn't understood how deeply her past shaped her fears. And while part of him wanted to be angry, another part understood that love is often tangled with wounds no one else sees. When she finished speaking, she waited for him to walk away. Instead, he took her hand gently and said, "You don't have to be perfect with me." Those words broke something open in her, and for the first time since their wedding, she cried without trying to hide her face. They sat there for hours, talking through memories, mistakes, and hopes. It wasn't the magical reunion people dream of, but it was honest. And honesty, for them, was the first step toward healing what had nearly been lost forever. Over the next year, they rebuilt slowly. They went to counseling, learning to speak openly instead of guessing each other's thoughts. They learned to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. Hannah shared stories she once buried, and Ethan learned to ask questions gently without withdrawing into silence. Some days were hard. Some nights ended in quiet tears. But through every challenge, they chose each other again. By the following summer, their connection felt different, not fragile, not fearful, but grounded. They decided to renew their vows, not for show, not for guests, but for themselves. Under the same fairy lights where Ethan originally proposed, they stood facing each other. Hannah said, "I want to love without hiding." Ethan answered, "I'm here for all of you, even the parts that once scared you." And this time, their promises were real in a way they hadn't been before. Their story became a reminder that relationships are not defined by the moments that break us, but by the choices we make afterward. Many people face fears they never voice, insecurities that twist their actions, or doubts that convince them they're unworthy of love. Hannah's moment at the altar wasn't an act of cruelty, it was a collision of past trauma, present fear, and overwhelming expectation. Ethan's pain was real, but so was his compassion. And in their willingness to face the uncomfortable truth, they found something deeper than the fairy tale romance they once imagined. They found understanding. They found patience. They found a love that could withstand imperfection. And though their wedding day became a memory neither would ever forget, it also became the moment that pushed them toward a stronger foundation, one built not on illusion, but on truth. Now I want to ask you, what would you have done if you were in Ethan's place? Would you have walked away after being humiliated in front of everyone, or would you have stayed long enough to understand the pain behind her actions? And if you were Hannah, carrying fears you couldn't explain, how would you hope your partner responded? Stories like this remind us that people often behave in ways shaped by wounds we cannot see. They remind us that sometimes the ones who push love away are the ones who need it most. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and how this story made you feel. Would you have forgiven her? Would you have tried to rebuild? Your thoughts matter. And if this story touched your heart, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the stories that help us understand ourselves, and each other, a little more.